Hello! Welcome back to Haddle's house. I hope you guys had a great weekend, and I'm so happy that you're here and listening to the latest episode. This week I interviewed Zion Fadel, who makes music under the name Jasper Typical, and we had such a fun and interesting conversation. Zion is a warm, funny, and wise person who loves animals, makes great music, and is just a really good person all the way down to his core. I learned that Zion uses he, they pronouns, and we had such an interesting conversation about their upbringing, their musical inspiration, their ghost encounter. Yeah, they had one. I really don't want to give anything away because you really have to listen to understand, but it's a great interview. I got to know him at such a deeper level, and I think by the end of this, you're going to feel like you know him too. Check out his music at Jasper Typical, and stay tuned to the end of the episode to hear one of his songs. As always, if you're not already, please follow me on Instagram at Haddle's house, and please enjoy my conversation with Zion Fadel. Welcome to Haddle's house. Thank you so much for coming.
Of course, I'm glad to be here.
The first question I always ask people is, how do we know each other?
So, I work at Echo Bark Inc. here in Silver Lake, and Hadley's been coming in with her lovely little dog, Betty, for a while now. But when she does come in, it almost is like a podcast with all of us in the store just kind of talking about random stuff. And so I think that just led to here. I've done this sort of thing before, but sometimes it's very music centric, and that can dissuade me from being like super personal or loosey-goosey. And I don't know, it sounded very fun. So I've always enjoyed your energy in the store. So yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've enjoyed yours too. I do want to talk about music a little bit. We can maybe start with that. So what do you do? Tell me about it.
Yeah, so I sing, I produce most of my stuff. I'm trying to open that up to more collaboration, obviously, but I've been doing this for a while now, probably about a decade now, just making my own stuff and kind of building a small audience from that. And it's been really good. It's been pretty fun, just especially because it is something that I get so much personal enjoyment out of, that to find an audience that also gets a kick out of it is really sweet. That was definitely what motivated me when I started, like in high school, like having friends at school or kids I didn't even know who were like, oh, that was cool, like whatever. So got really into that, and that's definitely like my main passion out here in the city. I moved here when I was 18 to do that, and
that's awesome.
That's definitely been my driving force for sure.
And what kind of music do you make?
I like to explore pretty much everything. I'd say probably like alternative pop is like the closest genre I could put it into, but always open to other things. And most recently just trying to explore more like kind of gritty, maybe punk edge to things too, exploring some of my dad's old recordings and seeing how I can like interpret that into my own stuff.
His recordings as in like music he made?
Yeah, both my parents were like a massive influence for me as a creator, both being musicians themselves. My dad was in a punk band. He's been in a bunch of bands, but the one that I think has really resonated with me the most was probably his band Sapo back in the day. And a lot of those recordings I've kind of just had, and recently I got my hands on the instrumentals, and I've kind of been like, why don't I just try to see what I can do with these instrumentals, because they're really cool and I haven't done anything with this kind of sound. So yeah, I'm definitely exploring that. It's fun because my dad gets a massive kick out of it. He enjoys seeing me do stuff with his old work, so yeah. It's great, and I love making him happy.
Yeah, and that's so cool to like get to weave his music into your own music.
Totally.
And like do something new with it.
Yeah, and it's something that, I mean, as a kid, I think I was always pushed to do the music thing, and it wasn't until I had a little bit of my own authority that I actually decided, okay, I'm going to actually do this. And when that did happen, my parents were obviously very open to it, and especially my dad just really wanted to like make stuff together. And so even though I'm pretty far away from him right now, I try to do that as much as I can still. So yeah, it's really sweet. It's really special.
Really sweet.
Yeah.
Did you take like music lessons growing up?
Not at all.
Just like being in a musical household?
I was honestly against lessons of any sort for the most part. I was a real little prude in that way, where I was pretty terrified of those sort of interactions. But it's like certain things like guitar lessons or something like that was so terrifying to me. I don't know why.
That's interesting.
So yeah, I had to definitely come to that conclusion myself. I started from a very like hip hop influenced place because there was just a lot of hip hop fans around me at the time. I had friends that were doing cypher stuff, and so they would just invite me to do that, or we'd be like freestyling in class, and that kind of pushed me to start doing that. And I had found out about MF Doom at around 15 or 16 years old, and that really got me like, oh, this seems pretty easy to do just at home with like very little tools at my disposal. So I made these really shitty recordings in high school and had all my friends on them, and some of my teachers were really happy about it because they were just like, oh, kids are making music. Okay, cool. That's sweet. But really what that was a stepping stone for me to just learn how to make the stuff, learn how to use the tools, and then eventually find my own voice and become comfortable like singing. And because at the time I feel like rapping was just my way of like avoiding singing. You know, there's a lot of things I've realized I've done in my life. It's like avoiding the thing that I know I can do well, but I'm embarrassed or whatever. Like I have a somewhat feminine voice, and I was very scared of that as a kid, and so I would really play it down. And so I think when the idea of
or when you're singing,
I think when I'm singing, but like I think there's inflections in the way I speak that I think I'm a little bit like aware of, that like as a kid I was like, oh my god, I can't do this. I think that was just me being terrified of like the queerness inside me, but like at the same time that definitely dissuaded me from singing, and it took me like almost accidentally doing it in front of a friend and then being like, whoa, that's pretty good, for me to be like, maybe I should do this.
Yeah.
So if anything, I've learned a lesson in that I could definitely learn a few things from myself rather than hearing it from other people first, but that takes a lot of time, you know. I think nowadays I'm a little more comfortable to just kind of dive in, but at the time I was so petrified and like where I was. I'm sure most people can relate to that.
I can definitely relate to that. And it also sounds like so much of what you're saying, the theme is like kind of growing up and being comfortable with yourself, and then being comfortable enough to have other people kind of like help you mold your own thing rather than like somebody shoving it down your throat.
Absolutely. Yeah. And my parents, I think, realized that pretty early on. Okay, we're not going to just force them to do music because then they're really not going to want to do it. Yeah. So when you kind of just let a kid just come to something themselves, it's honestly usually turns out much more beautiful and authentic, because you know, maybe your kid doesn't end up wanting to do music. I just happened to do what my parents wanted me to do. I mean, I'm sure they'd be happy with whatever I did, but I think they were just interested to hear my voice and see what I did.
I feel like so much of what you're saying is just like parts of growing up and accepting all of ourselves.
Totally. It's such a funny thing to just watch like your siblings or your friends come into themselves the same way, and you don't think about yourself that in that regard, and then you have people explain it to you like, oh man, you used to be so like this way, usually in positive ways, you know, but like, oh my man, I really was that way, you know. I have friends who were so like crazy shy back in the day, and now they're like doing their thing, and I wouldn't have never expected them to be the way they are now. And I can watch them do it and see the whole progression, but when it's yourself, you have zero clue. It's just you're going day by day. I think it's nice to realize that you're motivated by something. It's nice to know that, at least for myself, I'm happy that there's something that really gets me up in the morning, and like I'm like, this is what I want to do, you know.
Yeah.
I know some people are still trying to figure that out, which is also sick. I think that there's an LA-ism in being like, what are you working on? Or, hey, what are you doing? Like, what brought you to the LA? Like, why can't I just be like working on myself? Or why do I have to have something going on? You know, there's really always, there's like, everyone thinks you got to have a project going. There's also something super sweet about just kind of trying to figure yourself out, because that whole process is usually where the best stuff comes out of. Like, I've been reading Rick Rubin's book, and he talks a lot about that, and how you not forcing stuff and you just kind of living your life, going on walks or listening to music and taking in a lot of media, and a lot of that is what makes good art. You have to really kind of let yourself take as much time as you need, and then naturally stuff just pours out.
It's so true. Also, his book is called The Creative Act. And I do feel like there's so much value in that, because I think as creatives, we are so much like chasing the next project and like, what could I possibly be doing right now? Like, how can I be advancing all these 50 million goals?
It's intimidating.
It is intimidating, but it's so true. Like, so much of work is rest and
Yeah.
like turning your brain off to the extent you can, and going for a walk, like watching a movie, like getting
Totally.
inspired by other people and other things. And it doesn't always have to be the grind.
And I think you don't think about it in retrospect, but like so much of the art that you maybe have finished and put out came from a place of like spontaneity. I think I've had some of the best ideas when they're just hit me in the face. I'm like, whoa. Like I was gonna mention, like Albert Einstein used to have some of his craziest thoughts where he was just about to fall asleep. I've read this somewhere, but like he would be falling asleep, right about to fall asleep, and then he'd have like a genius thought, or he'd have something, oh that's right, like an epiphany right from that state. Some of the best ideas just come from a place of like you're not looking for them, they hit you.
Yeah, like the Eureka guy was taking a bath.
Yeah, exactly. Or like Isaac Newton with the apple on the
Yeah.
head, I think you lose sight of that though when you feel like you have to pump stuff out or you have to finish stuff. And like, I mean, finishing stuff is great, but like I think there's certain aspects of it that you should appreciate the process and let it take however long you need it to take.
Right. And if something doesn't feel finished, like that's okay. You don't have to put it out just because you're like, you're not a content machine, you're an artist.
Exactly.
Hopefully.
And then maybe you come back to it and you're like, I'm gonna finish this, and you do finish it, and then you listen to it and you're like, wait, I like the one that wasn't finished actually. Maybe that was the finished version.
Yeah.
That happens with music a lot. They call it like demoitis, where you like get so in love with the song, like the demo form of a song that you just like threw together in a couple takes, that it almost prevents you from going and recording the actual full song, because you're like, but I like this one, it's all like bedroom poppy, and it's like, but you should make the full studio version. Like people don't want to, like I'm sure people do want to hear that too, but you can build the whole thing out, you can make a world. Why just like leave it at the demo?
Yeah.
But sometimes the demo ends up being the final product. It just is like, you just got to trust the process.
What advice would you give someone who wants to start in music?
I would say a big thing is you don't need anything more than like your phone if you really want to just make music, and you don't have to spend a ton of money. I didn't at all. Sure, I had parents that had like music equipment in the house, so that definitely helped a little bit, but there are so many good tools out there just on the app store that you can use and start recording. And your phone has one of the best compressor mics on it. If you have an iPhone, if you have like a newer generation Android, it's got a great compressor mic on it, which is fine. If you have someone that can mix stuff well, your song's going to sound comparable to some of the stuff on the radio. So just like start making music, start recording stuff in your notes app. If you really want to make music, you're going to have melody ideas all the fucking time. Just like go in the bathroom if you're at a restaurant and record that and just go with that. 'Cause those kind of things are so special. Like I think I get so excited when I forget that's how the song came to be, and then I'm going through my notes app and I find the original recording of like a chorus that I'd made, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I think my advice would just be like, rip the Band-Aid off. Just do like, what do they say? Behavioral activation or something like that, where you just force yourself to do it. Just get yourself into that, and then build a habit around it, and then you're going to start making music that you like to listen to. And I think that's the most important part. If you can listen to a song you've made on loop and it's enjoyable for you, then you're like in the right direction.
Really
That's
good
my
advice.
advice.
That's really good advice.
Thank you.
Can you quickly tell me your life story? Like, where are you from? Who raised you? What was your journey getting to LA like?
Yeah, so I was raised by my mother and father in Portland, Oregon. I was born into a very loving and accepting family, which I'm very appreciative to this day. Just my mom is very much like an activist, and my dad is, I would say my dad is too, but he's a school teacher, and he really cares about education and about kids, and just like my parents love people. And I think being born into a family like that, where they grew up not with the greatest parents and they're just trying to do a better job. Every parent doesn't get it perfect, but grew up in just a great kind of environment. My sister came along 2 years after I was born, and she's still my best friend to this day. And yeah, just naturally, I think, we just had like a really strong bond. We had a little family band thing back in the day. My parents had this all-inclusive kind of church in Portland that was more like a space for just everyone that kind of needed a place to go on Sunday, because like not a lot of trans people had a safe place in 2006, you know.
Yeah.
And so whether it was that or some of the homeless population, or you know, just some of the developmentally disabled people in the neighborhood who just really wanted a place to like hang out with people, make art, sing, do all that kind of stuff, that was the space I was raised in. And so I naturally just kind of have always been attached to kind of seeing those kind of sides of people, because you see just all walks of life come in here and just want to be creative. And there was a lot of amazing people that you would have never said hi to on the street, but they came into the space, and as a young kid it was just like a really cool environment. And then through that I think it made it really easy for me to approach like my artistic endeavors as I got older. And then went through school. I went to art school for all of my schooling. High school was really the only school that wasn't like, you know, a art school, but even then they had a pretty massive art influence. But I was just kind of surrounded in the arts. I took dance for 10 years. I just have really loved kind of anything I can do that just is like artistic expression. And so by the time I was 18, I was looking for like really any way to find a community or of people that just kind of felt the same way as me. And actually, I guess this would have been when I was 17. I ended up meeting this whole collective called Raised by the Internet, and they had asked me to join. I had met this kid at Comic-Con back in the day, and he was like, I have this collective. You know, we've seen you on this. I was on this documentary back in the day. They had seen me on it, and so they asked me to join. And from there, I met this community that I'd wanted all along, of just people that had all the same like ambitions and were super excited about the same stuff and knew they were going to achieve it, you know. And that was so intoxicating for me. And from that, we all decided to move to LA. And so when I was 18, with the support of my parents, I was like, I'm just doing the LA thing. Let's just do it. And it was terrifying. At first, I was just couch hopping around San Diego, just like kind of on Craigslist or on like really anything like Zillow or like, I don't know, like Nextdoor, like looking for anyone who just wants like a roommate or something. And I said I would do it for 10 weeks. And if I didn't find a place, I would go home and I would figure out a different plan. And I probably wouldn't end up moving to LA. And then literally, I think on the 8th week, I found a place.
Wow.
At the time when I first moved in order to afford rent, I had to share my room with another friend who was in the collective. And
really quickly, what is this collective?
This was Raised by the Internet.
Yeah, but what is Raised by the Internet?
So Raised by the Internet, no longer a thing, but it was basically our way of doing our own Odd Future, kind of. Okay. We really just wanted to be Odd Future. And it was me, Jelani Aryeh, who's doing pretty good. He's a artist out right now. Troy Blank, Asha Muno, Giddy, just a lot of really cool artists. And some of them I'm still very close with to this day. So there was all these kind of vocalists, you know, and then we had the other side that was like the production and the visual aspects, and you had Rob and Will and all these really great people who were running that side of it, and it just kind of felt like a family, you know. And what that did was just kind of, it gave us a way to pump each other up, really, and just get good music out. And sadly, we never made a body of work together, but we all kind of just helped each other finish our own solo projects and stuff, and that was really special. We played a lot of shows together, and it was a good time. It was definitely an era for sure. And then things just kind of naturally fell apart. Shitty managers, crappy record deals, all that kind of stuff. And I'm here, you know, some people have been really successful in the group, which has been really cool. But yeah, we'll see where things go for me. I'm confident, you know.
I'm confident in you too.
But it was a really great time, you know, and if anything, I think it helped me realize anywhere you really look, like, you can find pretty amazing folks. I am continuously blown away by some of the things those folks can do.
I also think it's just really cool, like, so much of when we were talking about LA and like how it is such a group of hustlers and everyone's doing the next thing, like it is often really hard to find like your collective of people who are doing your specific niche and like are not trying to tear you down. I mean, I haven't really had that experience because the comedy scene is like pretty collaborative, but I'm sure as a musician it's probably quite rare to find people that you not only gel with from like an artistic.
Cutthroat. Yeah, no, absolutely.
So that's great that you like came here with a group.
Yeah, it was super, it was helpful, totally. And yeah, it definitely was a good way to shove a battery in my back and kind of be like, this is how you're gonna do this shit. This, you can be a machine. You can pump out music. You can do this. There's a real like machine kind of mentality to collectives,
Yeah.
and like work like a factory, you know. And so yeah, I think we did that. We had a lot of good times doing that kind of stuff.
Cool.
But yeah, that was special. That was a special time. But yeah, you can still find stuff if it's out there. Yeah.
Yeah. If you weren't doing music and you could wave a magic wand and do something completely different,
Oh yeah.
what would you do?
Good question. Easy question for me, actually. Character design. I would love to do, that's like my dream before I did any of the music stuff, was to be, specifically when I was a kid, I really wanted to be a Pixar character designer.
Oh, cool.
And that was totally what I was trying to go for. And that's really still one of my main loves, is visual art and just drawing, painting, all that. And I love making up just nutty characters from the inner crevices of my brain. I was a special features kid. I would always watch all the special features for every movie I had, and there would be character designer like reels where they would show all this stuff, and you'd hear them kind of talking about the process of designing Buzz Lightyear, seeing all these weird ass iterations of the characters before they, were who we know now, and just want to be a part of that process.
That's a really cool goal. Yeah.
That's a big one for me. Like, I'd be down to do animation, and I have done some animation, but just the idea of being able to kind of do a bunch of things and make a bunch of characters, and you're not just kind of like held down by one project. You can do a bunch of different stuff.
This feels stupid now, but like I didn't even really ever think that that's one specific person's job.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, that's a really good one. What advice would you give yourself 5 years ago?
I would say this is advice I got 5 years ago and I didn't take. It's just, don't take yourself so seriously. I think that's a big one. Not because it's actually true, but I think it's a good way to desensitize some of the like intense thoughts you have and be like, it's not that deep. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't take it. It's just a good way to walk yourself off a ledge, I think, if you're like over analyzing stuff, whether it's about yourself or just like how people think about you or whatever. And then I would say I would say don't tolerate bullshit. That's another one.
That's also really good advice.
Like, call people out, and I love calling people out.
Me too.
If they're being nasty, if they're being mean, like if I'm on the bus and someone's being like disrespectful as hell, I'm gonna tell them fuck you. Like, I'm sorry.
I don't do that because I feel like as a woman it's like in
it's
spaces,
totally privileged of me to
no, but like I'm not trying to shade you off for that. I'm just saying
please do.
I also love calling people out.
It's kind of red pilled. It's a little red pilled, but and I think it's really great to do that with friends. Like, if your friend does something that's really wild, and whether that's like, I've had friends in the past just do something that's like, that is not how you treat a woman. You know what I mean? Like, we're in public and they just do something like, bro, what the hell was that? And I don't see enough people do that shit with their friends.
Yeah.
Like, call their friends on some weird ass shit they do in public. Like, you inherently are a yes man if you're not doing stuff like that. Like, you're the person that's around them the most. Don't encourage their dumbass behavior.
That's so true. What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
Oh my
Maybe
God.
we already covered it because that was a lot of advice right there.
Yeah, the best advice I've ever gotten.
If there's like one thing that you like think of frequently, you know?
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's my mom, when she dropped me off for high school every day, she'd always say, remember who you are. That's her like motto, catchphrase. That's the best advice I think I've ever gotten. And I'm definitely going to get it tattooed on me one day, because it's, I don't know, I just associate it so closely with my mom, but also it's so important to like remember not only who you are now, but like realize that you're just like a grown-up version of the 5-year-old and all the pictures that you have, and there's something you have to nurture that kid, like that is just as important as who you are now. And I think as we get older, we think that like being an adult kind of like dwindles our childlike nature and the really cozy parts of ourselves, because we've like nastied it with our like horniness and our depression. But I think in reality, like, you have to really lean into those spots and really nurture the child in yourself, because that's really the part that like comes out when you're really anxious. Like if you're really going through some shit, you just turn into that kid again and you deal with it the way you deal with it as a kid.
Yeah.
You're doing some form of what you did in kindergarten on the first day or whatever. So I think, yeah, my mom saying remember who you are, that still resonates with me a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's so simple, but it's pretty profound.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that's something that she tells herself a lot too. So I think that makes it more special to know it's like just the people that give you advice don't necessarily like get the advice right all the time. There's a lot of bad advice out there, but usually mom's got your back.
Yeah, definitely. I like that advice a lot because you seem like someone who's extremely comfortable with themselves.
I hope I am.
I mean, that's the vibe
I'm trying. I think that I could be, I don't know. I'm working to be better, but I like that
Well, like we all are.
Yeah.
You know, like that's all you can ever do. And who knows what the lived experience is. Like I can't speak for you.
I mean, it's like what we talked about. It's like when you're living it, you have no idea what's going on.
Right.
You're going
true.
day by day, but people can see you doing it. People can see you growing. Like I'm sure if I asked my sister like what I've accomplished, she'll be able to tell me. You know,
Yeah.
like same goes for her. Like, so it's yeah. You just gotta allow yourself a chance to celebrate some of your wins. My mom also is just like treat yourself, you know, like if you had a shit day, get yourself some ice cream or like do something stupid that's gonna make you feel good, you know.
Yeah, just like take time and let yourself heal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you collect anything?
Oh yeah, I collect some stuff. Yeah,
What do you
I
collect?
collect Pokemon cards.
Oh yeah.
For sure. I collect like little trinkets. Me and my girlfriend collect a bunch of little like blind box guys. Have you seen those before?
No.
It's definitely like a Japanese trend that's kind of made its way across the seas. But you get a box and you have like you have a chance to get like 16, 8 or whatever different characters and you don't know which one you're going to get. And you just get a little, it's like kind of cheap.
Are all the
sometimes.
characters like from the same universe?
They'll do like
Fun.
collabs, like they'll do like SpongeBob X Hello Kitty, you know, and then it's like maybe you'll get Hello Kitty in the Gary costume or a
Oh, that's
Squidward
fun.
costume, and then they always have one that's like silhouetted, like ooh maybe you'll get this one. Which one's this, you know? So it's cute. It's like definitely a good little like if there's like a small little anniversary or something like that, you can just get a little blind box. And
I
like,
love that
like
idea.
$20 or something like that, but. I used to collect way more. I have a massive record collection back in Oregon that I kind of accumulated over my high school experience, and I'm definitely going to have to ship that out here eventually. But primarily I've been on the Pokemon card shit recently. Just it's comforting. That's if I'm having a shit day,
Totally.
I'm going to like buy a pack of Pokemon cards so I can feel like a little kid again opening it. Yeah.
What's your most valuable Pokemon card?
I don't know. I sold a lot of them over this last Christmas so I could afford Christmas presents,
Oh.
which was really sad, but it was fine. You know, whatever. Sometimes you got to make sacrifices.
Totally. And also, like, I don't know. I think we collect things so that we can use them and have them. And if that means getting value from the valuable ones, like, that's also
Totally.
using it.
Because I personally get a lot of value out of getting people gifts, you know,
Yeah.
so if I can afford it, or like taking people out to dinner, like if I can afford that because I got rid of something, sure, whatever.
Zion, have you ever seen a ghost?
I haven't ever seen a ghost, but I have experienced a ghost.
Tell me everything.
When I was I think I was 14 or 15, one of my friends, Fisher, was having a birthday, and underneath Portland there's a large network of tunnels called the Shanghai Tunnels that connect to a bunch of bars and clubs and factories all over the city, and
Whoa.
all lead to the river, which is cool. What's that about? It was used for trafficking essentially back in the day, that you would like they would literally have full-on operations in these bars where like they would get a guy drunk and then the floor would open beneath him right into the Shanghai Tunnels, and he
What?
would be pulled off onto a ship and shipped off somewhere to be like trafficked
And
essentially.
this is not a conspiracy theory. This is
No, this
very
is all
well
real stuff.
documented.
It happened a long time ago, probably in like the late 1800s, like that kind of like maybe early 1900s. But yeah, this really happens.
That's
and
crazy.
The craziest part is they're still finding new entrances like all the time
Wow,
to the
I know
Shanghai Tunnels.
What my Wikipedia before bed is
Oh
gonna
yeah,
be.
it's crazy. Same with Seattle. It was built on an entire old city, and you can see that too. That one's really cool.
What? Oh my god, I'm so happy that
yeah.
you're telling me this stuff.
So basically, there's a whole tour that you can do, and there's like the historical tour or there's the ghost tour of the Shanghai tunnels. Actually, I should mention too, my dad ran a club when I was younger, like 5, 6, and towards the end of the club's existence, they found an entrance to the Shanghai tunnels within the club, and the city came in and blocked it off and was like, you can't go in here because you can. I'm sure some parts still there's probably bodies like skeletons.
Also, I think it's just too dangerous to like.
Yeah, and there's probably lead and like lots of poison down there.
I also meant dangerous in terms of like humans.
Oh yeah, there's probably
like shit going on down there.
Oh, I'm sure. Oh, there's got to be something crazy going on. Maybe mole people stuff.
So your dad's bar had
Dad's bar had an entrance. Besides the point, my friend Fisher, he basically wanted to have a birthday, and the tour guide's like, do you want the history tour or do you want the ghost tour? And everyone's like, oh, we want the ghost tour, obviously. So they like show us all like the hatches where they would open up and someone fell through, and that was really crazy and spooky. But there was also like little boots left over from people that used to work in those tunnels and spooky stuff like that. And she's explaining to us how people will see kids in like choir gowns, like most notably like black children in choir gowns, which most likely, I mean, whether you believe in ghosts or not, I mean, Portland has a really, really unfortunate racist history. It was a whites only city for a really long time, and one of the most unfortunate histories for black people like in America.
Wow, which is really saying something.
I think people kind of put it together that maybe something really horrible happened to like different kids like who faced that kind of discrimination in the Shanghai tunnels. I mean, trafficking kids was going on like for sure. That's like actually noted, you know. But while they're explaining all of this, we're just kind of, me and my buddies are like freaking each other out. You know, we're like, oh, yeah, is it? Oh, yeah, like that kind of thing. And she's showing us pictures and you're getting spooked and everything. And as all of this is happening, I feel like this, what feels like someone like hovering their hand half an inch above your back.
Oh my God.
Like, you know, like you can feel if someone like puts their hand by you, it's almost like you can feel like the static or like you can feel the presence.
Yeah.
I just felt this just go down my back and I was like really unsettled for a second, like what the hell? And I looked over at my shirt and the side of my shirt was bunched up like this. Like,
what?
Like that. And I'm looking around and I'm thinking like my friends are messing with me and they're all enamored by whatever the woman's talking about, and I'm just looking at my shirt all like that and I'm like, what the hell? So I was spooked out. I'm 15. I'm definitely like into paranormal stuff, but I'm not like outwardly trying to have an experience here. But yeah, it was spooky. And I think I was the only one that did have an experience that night. I could have remembered something differently, but I have a very, very vivid memory of having like a hand go down my back and my shirt bunching up, and it was spooky. Yeah, and the Shanghai tunnels, like that's kind of what made it the freaky part. I didn't go. I came in so goofy, like, oh, this is stupid, you know. And then I left like actually pretty scared. So that's the scariest thing, I think. Me and my sister used to joke that our house was haunted, just because it used to be like a drug den on our street, like before we moved in. The drug dealer of the neighborhood lived in that house, distributed from that house, and like all the druggies just lived there. And then once we moved in, my mom said we'd be playing in the front yard and some like freaky dude would like pull up and he'd be like, hey, is Arthur around?
Oh my God.
My mom's like, Arthur's been in prison for 4 years. And he's like, oh, all right, man. All right, peace. We grew up in a really, I mean, I grew up pretty impoverished. So like we grew up in a pretty, I wouldn't say like it was a great neighborhood, but there was some unsavory folks and there was gang activity and stuff going around. So it was.
So that's your own kind of ghost.
Yeah, it was scary. Knowing like how to lay on the floor if someone's shooting outside and stuff like that. As a kid, it's like weird shit. You don't know any different, but when you get older, you're like, oh, well, that's a weird thing to, like in retrospect, like it is kind of nutty.
Yeah, I mean, only until I was 4, so I don't have a ton of memories of it. But I grew up in Detroit in the '90s, and like that was very much
so
like
you know,
lay flat against the like seat of the car when we're going through certain neighborhoods and stuff.
It's probably ingrained in you, low key. Like you have that. I mean, probably just because my mom said it so many times, it's just inherently like now I know that's what to do. Hey, it's a good skill to know.
It is
like That stray bullets are no joke. That kind of stuff happened a lot. It only really stopped happening relatively. I mean, it still happens everywhere, but like the neighborhood I grew up in kind of got gentrified, and which is unfortunate. And I mean, the only good thing of that was like some of that left the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Because police actually cared. They're like, oh, now we'll peruse these neighborhoods. Yeah, I could go on such a long. I would go on the long. It would be a whole podcast, me just explaining how sad the history of Portland is, and like how much we owe to the black community of Portland. It's just like, bro, so much. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. I really don't know a ton about Portland. I've actually only spent like probably 12 hours there.
Airline, like layover?
No, I was driving across the country.
Oh, okay, sweet.
And I kept going. But it's interesting that you say that, because I do think of Portland as such a white city.
It's very...
In a very, like,
very
negative
white.
way, where you're just like, damn, why is Portland so white?
Coming from, like, Los Angeles, too, like, being, like, I think one of the most diverse cities in the world.
Yeah.
To Portland, we're like, Jesus, what the hell? And it pissed me off, too, because I grew up in a predominantly black neighborhood, and I went to predominantly black schools, and, like, hearing people describe Portland that way, I felt like it wasn't accurate. But then as I grew up and saw, like, oh, outside of my neighborhood is pretty much that. Oh, why is that? Oh, because the history is that we moved all these black families to this neighborhood because we told them that's the only place they could live. And so historically it just became that way.
Wow.
Until white people wanted to take it back and be like, oh, but we want to put a salt and straw here. I hate salt and straw. There's one up the street now.
Yeah.
Boycott it. Pazzo Gelato.
Yeah, Pazzo Gelato forever.
Come on.
Yeah, but that's actually, I mean, that's a very interesting kind of like slice of life that you have growing up in a predominantly black neighborhood with predominantly black schools in a very white city. Like,
yeah.
That's an it sucks that the whole city isn't more like integrated.
Yeah.
But just the fact that you were able to, like, you know, not have an all white experience.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very grateful. It was very humbling because, you know, I was not the most educated kid. I wasn't like racist. I wasn't like stupid. I'm sure I was stupid, but
all kids are stupid.
I think I don't know. I feel like by the time I left high school, I just felt like I had so much insight, I just felt like I cared so much about like kind of my voice and my ability to be an ally and the importance of showing up to rallies or to, like, if you see injustice in front of you, like, it's important to call it out. Like, every rival school, when they'd come and play football at our school, would do some of the most heinously racist stuff, like, just to say they're going to win. Or there would be a massive police presence at the football games because they thought there was going to be a shooting.
That's
or like,
so fucked up.
So that kind of stuff happened actively on a regular basis. I did not know what that was like until I experienced it. It's so important to, whether you've experienced it or not, get familiar with that is the way that people live, that you're treated differently based off some shit that just has no basis, you know? Yeah. So this is all starting to sound white saviory, but I think that was a cool experience to just know that it's important to you know, be an ally. And then kind of on the note of like salt and straw and all that, boycott shit you don't like. I think that's so important. If you see something changing the neighborhood you grew up in and you don't recognize it, boycott that shit. You have the power to do that. Totally. You know, as a person, like, I have this thought, if I'm gonna go and do something, whether that's vote or make a song or something, I feel like because I'm doing that, 10 other people are also gonna do that. You know, like, I don't know why I think that way, but like, because I'm like, just screw it, I'm gonna do it. Maybe 10 other people are also gonna say, screw it, I'm gonna go vote, fuck it. That's another bit of advice, I think. If you're passionate about something, don't sit around and wait for something to happen. Like, stand up and do some shit. So like, boycott stuff, or like, you know, be annoying about it on social media.
Yeah, or like protest, or call representatives.
Yeah, absolutely. Call representatives, send letters to your city council, like, do pretty much anything you can on, whether it's on a small scale to help your city or to help the country, whatever you're passionate about, you know? I mean, you can't do everything, so figure out the stuff that you really care about and focus on that. I think if the same goes for art and stuff, you can't do everything. You maybe can, like, if you're Donald Glover.
Yeah, seriously.
Or, like, if you have...
No, literally just if you're Donald Glover.
Yeah, you just have to take things one step at a time. Like, I think that if you stretch yourself so thin like that, you don't get as great of results because you're kind of forcing it.
Yeah.
Because you're not giving everything the same amount of attention. Somehow Donald Glover manages to do it right every time. I don't know how.
I don't understand. He's
like that.
He's one of a kind.
Yeah, for real.
Do you believe in signs from the universe?
Oh, totally.
Do you have an example of one that, like, sticks out to you, or do you see them all the time?
Yeah, the number 36 has always been very special to me. I was born March 6th at 3:56, and something about the numbers 3 and 6 together, I don't know, just like resonates. Like 36 Mafia, I love the group. 36 Chambers, Wu-Tang, all these little things. There's a lot of 36 everywhere, and I see that a lot. And whenever I see 36, I tell myself that that's a sign I'm, like, doing the right shit, or I'm going in the right direction. You know, like if I'm walking somewhere and I see like addresses, they say 36, I'm like, I'm doing the right shit.
Yeah.
Right now, you know, so that might be the only one that really, like, I experience on a regular basis.
Yeah. Do you have a worst first date story that you know of? It doesn't have to be yours.
Yes. Oh my God. I'm so happy. I'm getting there. It's all coming to me. I almost was killed on a first date.
Oh my God, what?
Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah. I don't know if it...
Is this traumatizing, or are you like...
No. I don't think it was her intention to try to kill me. It worked out this way. And
but you're not sure that it wasn't.
I'll tell you how it all happened. Please. So I went on a date with this beautiful girl. Went to middle school with her, actually.
Perfect.
And so we rekindled like something in high school, and we were like, let's just go on a date. That'll be cool. Just kind of, I think we went and got food and then walked around the neighborhood. And around where I grew up, I have all these spots. Portland is such a cool place in that there are so many little places that you can find that no one knows about, that are just tucked away, whether it's in the forest or like where I lived. It was, you would walk a certain distance away from my house. Eventually you would hit a cliff, and that cliff would kind of look off over like the river, a train yard. It was a great place to kind of hang out and have your picnics and all that. Behind it, there's a garden, and in the garden, there's this tree that hangs off the cliff.
Okay.
And then there's a fence. You jump the fence, and then you get to this tree that's hanging off the cliff, and it's like ivy everywhere. It's beautiful.
I'm sure it is, but like, I know you guys were also in high school, but like as an adult hearing this story, I'm like, please do not go sit on that tree.
It's so funny because to this day, I don't ever sit on the tree anymore. But I still go to the spot. So we both decide, I'm like, I'm going to back up and just kind of scoot onto this tree. So I sit on the tree, and she's sitting on the tree next to me, and we're just dangling off this cliff, basically. Like, it's not like a cliff, but it's probably like a 25-foot, maybe 30-foot drop.
Okay.
And it's just this like rugged hill covered in ivy, but it's not going to feel like that when you're falling down. And at the bottom, it's just like a road. And so we're just hanging on this thing, and she's like, and she's like totally on some crazy like masochist, like she's like, whoa. And then eventually she like does that, and I lose my balance, and I literally almost fall, and to the point where my heart is like in my throat. Like I thought I was literally gonna die. Like my life flashes before my eyes.
I also am realizing this is a visual medium for anyone listening.
Yeah.
So like they can't see what you're doing. That
Oh, so okay, yeah. So we're sitting on this log. We're like each straddling the tree, and she's just kind of like putting her hands on my shoulder and tipping me like that off the tree. Like she has her hands on both my shoulders. I'm facing her, straddling the tree. She's facing me, and she's just like doing that.
Like,
whoa, yeah, exactly. Steering my shoulders, and she
like,
almost literally pushes me off the tree.
Fucked up.
It was so scary.
That is really scary.
Because it was not a safe situation. Immediately she can tell I'm like, what the hell was that about? And she's like, oh, was that not it? I'm like, no, let's get up. And then I was basically like icked out after that, you were like, obviously. Over. And so I walked her to the metro station, and I was just like, peace. Like I was so off of that after that. Like I made it clear, I was like, that was not cool. Like, that was really scary. You can't do that kind of thing.
mean,
I went home and she's like, hey, I hope we can do something again. Like, girl, like, you made I've never had someone make my life flash before my eyes. No one ever. That's something I don't want to be reminded of that.
Totally. Yeah, because like even if you like can get over it, whatever, like you still have that like gut visceral feeling, and you're just gonna associate her with that.
So, but yeah,
That's very scary.
It was scary. Yeah, that was a shitty first date.
That's definitely.
And last date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a couple more here. Yeah. If you could hear everything that has ever been said about you, but it's starting with the worst things, and if you can survive through those, then you get to hear all of the amazing things that have ever been said about you, would you do it?
No.
Yeah.
I'm too sensitive.
Me too.
No, I would actually be so, especially if I knew who said it.
Yeah.
It would be so hard. Mostly because like I said, I really am trying. I want to be the best person I possibly can. But yeah, I just don't think I can handle hearing that about myself, especially because I'm so concerned with being the best version. If I heard all that shit, I'd be like, man, fuck. Order would fuck me up too. Is it like a jumbled up, like 2019, this person said this, but 2008, this person said this? I would hit shuffle. If I could hit shuffle, I might do it.
Oh, that's a really interesting call. Yeah, no one has suggested the shuffle feature, but
you get 3 shit ones, but then you get like an incredible one, and you're like, oh, and then you get like an okay one, and then a shit one. It's like, yeah, I could do that. I can stomach that.
Yeah.
As long as you end on a good one.
I like that. I
would shuffle it for sure if I could. If that was an option, I just created a new option for myself.
You did. I actually was thinking, like, am I going to keep asking this question? Because so far everyone has said no, and it's like pretty obvious that like, no, why would you do that? But shuffle.
I would shuffle it.
We're going to keep asking the question then.
Yeah.
Do you know your attachment style?
I don't know, really. I would have to be like, what are the different attachment styles?
So there is anxious, avoidant, secure, and then disorganized.
This is the first I've ever heard of this.
Oh my God.
Crazy.
Okay.
Because like I know what like my love language is, and I've heard recently love languages are like bullshit.
They were
created
invented
by a
by
white
the
guy.
Christian church.
Yeah, and like.
But do you know what your love languages are? Like,
yeah, if I was to have a love language, it would definitely be acts of service. Like I will like take 4 hours. Like if someone needs me and like I don't have a way to transport, I would take a 4-hour bus ride to go see a person like if they need it. When I moved to LA, I was enamored by this woman, and she had just gotten out of a really shitty relationship, and in retrospect, I think I was definitely just a rebound. But I think for me, I'm glad that I was able to be a positive kind of person for her at that time.
Yeah.
Even though I think it did hurt me because I was really in love. But yeah, I think that's in my nature where those kind of things, if someone did that for me, I would be like, marry me. Like literally, or be my best friend forever. I don't experience that a lot with other people. And so I want to be that person for other people. And that's, if I think about it on my way home from work, like I'll get like my girlfriend's favorite pizza, like that kind of stuff is just, or like roses and like little things where it's really easy to do. It doesn't even cost you that much, or it's just the thought. And I like doing it for friends, like sending a text to a friend and being like, hey, I just wanted to let you know I'm so thankful that you're my friend. And like,
that's so nice.
Like I messaged my bosses the other day. I'm like, I'm so thankful that I work for people that I actually really care for. And some people's kindness needs to be celebrated, whether that's my bosses in this case, or like I just have friends that like they put up with a lot of bullshit, or they've done so much incredible stuff, and they just deserve that celebration, whether that's because they're kind or just because they're so committed, you know. And, some of those guys from Raised by the Internet that I mentioned before, I'm like, I feel that way about them. Or my girlfriend, like I see all the stuff that she does, and I'm like, oh my God, like just the most inspiring people to me are the people that I get to be the closest with on a regular basis. So, and
isn't that nice that they like feed each other? It's like
it's so cool, and I'm trying to get that more. And but back onto you were saying my attachment style. This is new to me.
I'm gonna go ahead and infer that you have secure attachment just based on everything you've said about your family, but the options are secure, anxious, avoidant, or disorganized.
Anxious might possibly be one too.
Okay.
Because anytime I hear the word anxious, I resonate. Like I'm such an anxious person. Like I just have the kind of brain where I immediately assume the worst sometimes. If I don't know, I just sometimes I'll get an intrusive thought. I remember being a kid and I would used to think like I'd lay in bed and I couldn't fall asleep. I'm like, what if my parents were dead right now? My sister were dead, like that, like, and I just had no idea. I'm just laying in bed right now, and that's just an anxious thought. But that's always been like how I am. And there's always been, like, I had pretty bad, I'm opening it all up right now, but I had pretty bad abandonment issues. Just through that church that my parents run, I'd meet all these incredible people, and I would meet a lot of, like, people, like, our age now that were so inspiring to me as a kid.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I want to be like them. But, yeah, having them come and go, but, like, if I were there, I wouldn't be staying in this community forever.
Right.
Eventually, I would go and do something else, but I, as a kid, couldn't understand that.
Totally.
So these people that I loved, I never saw again. And they would tell me all these things that I perceived as lies, because it was like, well, this never happened, or like, but you went away. Or my aunt, who I love dearly, she had 2 pretty shit marriages that she had gone through, and now she's with her like life partner. But like, the first marriage, they're still cool, and second one, it just ended really tough. But I had a really strong relationship with him, and so when it ended, he just kind of disappeared.
Damn.
And I didn't really understand that as a kid. He left a little letter that had like Batman on it. But yeah, it just felt like people that understood me always just kind of vanished. And then that stuck with me for sure. And
That's
so
really hard.
that might be also a part of my attachment style. I'm always kind of anxious that I'm going to lose something or I'm not going to get it. And so I'm constantly trying to make sure, like, I'm not a love bomber, but I'm definitely just like, I want people to know that I care about them, you know? And so if I realize, oh, I haven't said something to this person in a while, like my childhood best friends, like I'm still, like I will always still message one of my childhood best friends, like, hey dude, I love you. Or like kids I haven't seen for like years, just because like they were so fundamental in like in the process of making kind of who I am now, you know, and totally. I really want to like kind of let them know how thankful I am for them.
Totally, yeah. It sounds like it's, I guess I'm going to go disorganized, because it sounds like parts of it is very secure.
Yeah.
And then parts of it is anxious.
Totally. I think it probably started from a place of security, and then through time it warped.
That makes sense. I mean,
bit,
life will warp you.
Life will do that to you for sure. Yeah.
Okay, I have 2 quick questions. This one doesn't have to be a long thing. Do you know what your most toxic trait is?
My most toxic trait? I'm too handsome. No, I'm kidding. That's a good question. I would say probably like I was mentioning before, I think I probably already, that's how outward I am. I've already mentioned my most toxic trait, and that's probably like my need to like not disappoint people. You know, like I'm so like I'll shit on myself if like I really do something, or if I hurt someone's feelings, or if like I leave work and then Jeff texts me and he's like, hey, did you remember to do this thing? And I'm like, oh my god, fuck, I didn't. And then the whole rest of the night I'm like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. That's probably my most toxic trait. It's just because then that just turns into me being like a bitter little asshole. And you can't be super nice to other people if you're mean to yourself. Not to say I become like a total freak, but like,
no, but
I definitely become crotchetier and a little cranky if I feel down on myself, or I feel like stuff like that just hits a little harder. And I went to therapy today and talked about that a little bit, you know, and trying to work on just setting better expectations. Like I think that's really what it's all about, is like, if you set expectations that you can't meet, you're going to disappoint yourself so frequently. And so true. You just got to make things a little more manageable. You're the one that's in control at the end of the day. And then you get those smaller wins. They hit hard. Also, I ruminate on stuff, you know? So like if something hurts my feelings, or if I feel like I hurt someone's feelings, it's hard for me to get out of that. And then I have to like kind of work it back out of myself. And sometimes it's like when I'm at a party or I'm like on a date, I'm like, now's not the time, you know?
Right, but it's hard.
It can be hard to get out of that.
Like...
Yeah, absolutely. It can be difficult. But I'm fully ready to take it on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Slowly but surely.
Okay, that kind of leads me to my last question.
Yeah.
And you may not have one, but do you have an example of something that you always accepted to be true that you found out was false?
Oh, that's so good. Let me think. That's a hard question. It's like,
it is a hard question. That's why I save it for last.
Man, I'd say you are your friends. Like I've heard people describe like you are the people you surround yourself with, and I've come to realize that that's bullshit. Like you can like they're, but everyone is in a different kind of part of their life, and you can support them in that or not, whatever it is. I don't think that has anything to do with who you are as a person. I think I have so many different types of friends like that. Like that doesn't necessarily like resonate anymore. Like I used to think that was true, especially in a collective. When you are with a bunch of people that are like-minded, you're like, oh yeah, I'm these guys. I like these guys. This is me. But then those guys do stuff that not like horrendous things, but you do. I'm like, I wouldn't do it that way.
Right.
You know, and I'm like, maybe we're different people. You know, I think that is a very marginalizing kind of thought to have, because it's like, no, you can be your own person and have a unique group of friends. And I don't know if this is even a common thing, but I used to hear that all the time in high school. Like, you're the people you surround yourself
I've
with.
definitely heard that.
It's like the same thing as like, if your friend jumped off a cliff, would you do it too? Kind of in a different
And it
thing.
feels like that's such like an old world way to think, and it's also so limiting, because then if anyone does something you don't like, you're like, well, I can't be your friend because I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back on what we were talking about earlier. It's like then so you're not gonna address stuff that you don't like your friends doing, like so you're just gonna. That's not what friends do. Like, friends call each other out, friends take care of each other, and friends try to make sure you're like the best person you can be, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's the only thing that necessarily needs to be like synonymous throughout, you know? Like, just everyone wants to make sure we're all on the same page. We're all good people, you know?
And that also brings us right back to your mom's advice of remember who you are.
Yeah, totally. Like, again, that can mean so many different things. And if you're trying to redefine who you are, then remember who you really want to be. You know what I mean? Just establish your identity, establish who you feel like you are, and stick with it. You know, don't fold on something that someone else tells you. You know, it sounds corny, but it is so important to stick by like your gut. Yeah.
That's such good advice.
Hell yeah.
You're full of wisdom. Thank you so much, Zion.
Thank you, Hadley. It's been great. Haddle's house.
It's been really fun.
Here we go. Here we go.
We are out here.
We are out here. So I forgot to say this, but my artist name is Jasper Typical, and you can find my music really anywhere you can listen to it. I got a couple written interviews out there on the interwebs, and I've got a website too if you want to dig in and see what I'm up to. That's www.ratcreatures.com. But yeah, I've totally spaced on putting that in earlier. So socials are all at Jasper Typical. I think my TikTok's like Real Jasper Typical, or like The Real Jasper Typical, or something like that. But yeah, that's really everything. Yeah. Yeah. No sympathy, listen, no. Leave that shit by the door. I'm telling you, leave that shit by the door. I got no sympathy, listen, no. Leave that shit by the door. Furthermore, there's small and spurious pieces making up my life falls like a rag doll. Don't stray me off. Guess I'm putting it together now. Yeah, sooner or later I come around. When I took all our business at face value, I noticed how you had it out. Leave that shit by the door. I got no sympathy, listen, no. Leave that shit by the door. I'm telling you, leave that shit by the door. I got no sympathy, listen, no. Leave that shit by the door. Furthermore.
Maybe I haven't been proud of myself for a very long time, but I can say proud of my instincts.